Daryl, do you feel like you guys have a good infrastructure in place to mentally help Joel along? Because, everything with his knee notwithstanding and everything else in there, he's been very vocal about this has been the hardest health setback that he's dealt with. He said that consistently for a year. There was the moment where publicly he pushed back on, I think I need this, and there was some discord there. So, do you have a sense of where his head is at and what you guys need to do to get him back, not just physically, but as, a dominant player mindset?
Yeah, I'll say a couple of things there. One is, he's, I think I like the question because I think it points out that, as much as it was hard on, the coaching staff or the other players on the team that he wasn't available, it was hardest on Joel. I mean, he takes a lot of pride in being the MVP level player he can be and what that means for the fans in Philly. And I do think he takes to heart what Philly fans, care about and what they want him to be, which I think is great. I mean, because it puts high expectations. And I would say, in terms of like details on what he's doing personally to put himself in the right mental state are not something I would be privy to share. I think that would be something you'd have to ask Joel. But I do know that, resources are always provided to all our players to be able to play both from a physical and mental perspective at the highest level possible. And we do think that's a very important aspect to have those resources available. So.
And your comments about not being doctors or nurses up there, notwithstanding.
Can I just say one thing too? Because I think we have to understand not only, I'm privy to this because I'm on all the calls with our medical staff. Coach a little less, unfortunately, even though he has to talk every day, which puts him in a tough spot. But this has been a very complex situation for Joel, for medical staff, for outside folks like Dr. Glashow and others to, as you figuring out exactly the right next step to make sure we can put him in the best way to help our team win a championship is not straightforward. And that's why you do get, I think, different reports because it's one where you do need to gather a lot of data and a lot of opinions and then make the right choice. And we feel good about the choice. I know Joel does about the choice of that was just made. And Dr. Glashow going in and feeling very optimistic post that, I think is good. So.
Well, so to that point, arthroscopic procedures, as a general rule, are on the less invasive type of procedure relative to the spectrum of things that could be done. I guess so. Why was that, to your understanding, landed on after all these consultations with different doctors and talking with Joel about what he thinks he needs?
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to address that, except that I know was after lots of discussion and consultation the best plan to go forward.
Daryl, or Nick, I should say, Daryl has said a few times that his focus this summer is going to have a more younger, more dynamic roster. Obviously, you've been coaching the team all year. I know you didn't get a chance to see those three guys play together a lot, but beyond younger and more dynamic, for you guys to get where you want to go, what do you think needs to be around those guys next year?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that well, it's hard to look into the stats this year too much as a whole, right? But just I think that when we were close to being somewhat whole, if that makes any sense, that I think that the game keeps getting faster and faster and more dynamic, and just for like really basic things like just defensive transition or defensive rebounding. Like we just need to be a little bigger, longer, stronger, more athletic, just to get that basic thing kind of under control. I think that's probably the answer that covers other. You could go into some other things there, tacking off the bounce, some of that kind of stuff. But I think that would be the around, especially the two, Paul and Joel.
And Daryl, I know obviously you do a pretty thorough evaluation of everything. I know Nick talked earlier, he's going to do the same thing over the next few days and a few weeks. But just, I guess, given we've sort of known where this is going for the past several weeks, as you've sort of thought about how this team's come together, you mentioned the, leaning towards being older in terms of playoff experience last summer. What are, I guess, the things you have taken away beyond that from just an overall philosophical team building approach to why this didn't work and why, things you could put towards making this work in the future?
Yeah, I think I would probably reiterate what I said. I mean, you still need, great players to win. The history of the league is pretty straightforward there, that you need multiple great players. And then I feel very good about what Elton and our scouting staff can do and finding draft picks, finding Yabusele's, finding guys like that to fill it out. And I would say, the biggest thing is what Coach just mentioned too, which is that I do think the league is trending towards, there's just a higher, I think the playoffs are, it's a team building challenge actually, because I don't expect the playoffs to change, especially with the changes to the foul rules that happened last February that have continued. I do think the playoffs are going to still be pretty veteran heavy and sort of a war out there, and where the foul calls will go down and things like that. But the regular season has turned into a really high effort. Just to call out one area, since Coach mentioned it, but it used to be every team was just dropping back after their shot. Now teams are with length and athleticism, with high effort, both attacking the offensive glass and able to get back in transition. And, it's just a very high effort regular season. So that's why, we need to deliver a deeper, younger, more athletic, longer roster to Nick around our three main guys.
Daryl, we've seen some other teams, most notably Golden State, try to do that kind of two tracks approach with younger guys kind of supplementing their veteran core, varying rates of success. They ultimately abandoned it and kind of went back to bringing in more vets. So as you've been examining kind of maybe the past 2 or 3 years and how teams have done it, what makes you think that could be successful going forward?
Yeah, I would say there's no formula, right? I mean, to your point, and Golden State has done a tremendous job over the years on pretty much everything they've done. Save they had a really rough injury season like us and won like 20 games and then bounced back after, which is what we're hoping to do. I do think it's like a challenge, a real challenge to both build for the way the league is trending in the regular season and for the playoffs. But I do think Golden State's a good example too of, the playoffs generally come down to, are your great players or your great player better than the ones on the other team? And that sort of dictates where your first, second, and third players have to come from. And then I do think, we feel very good about our ability to find those young talents like Justin Edwards last year, and I think again Golden State's a good example. They've also done that very well.
I asked Nick this pregame. When you self-scout and you evaluate, who tells you the truth about the decisions you've made and the philosophical decisions that you made and kind of going forward? How can I be better?
I would say a few things. One is the score tells you the truth. So one thing I love about working in the NBA is you get a grade, and tonight our grade was minus whatever 15, right? We lost by. It's going to be funny that I don't know exactly the final score because I just knew we lost our. We didn't win this one, but you get a score, and you don't. That's the truth. Like, that is the bottom line. I think Philly, but more than any town, brings it real as well, which I love. And then ownership has extremely high expectations for myself and Nick, and they express that. And in appropriate ways, and they have very high expectations for us as well. So I think across those three, we get a lot of truth. And then, there are some key players on the roster who I think are very good at saying, hey, this is, I know you want to play this way, but it's not going to work because X or Y. And both Nick and I lean on the feedback of those sort of key players.
You mentioned the young talent, Tyrese and Quentin both 24, Jared McCain 21. Is there a confidence that those three all guards could fit alongside each other long term? I guess either of you or both of you could answer.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Nick. I think how we use them. I think Nick will obviously didn't. I'm not sure we had all. Yeah, we definitely never had all three of them this year, so we never had a chance to try it. I do think all three of those guys can contribute to a championship team, but exactly how we use it, I'll leave to Coach Nurse.
First of all, absolutely sure on Tyrese and really, really sure on Jared. I think his confidence level and just the way he's attacked this rehab and ready to go and work hard. Obviously, Q, it's kind of a little bit of a different situation. I think he played great. Love his fire, love his competitiveness, love his bounce. Got some strength. Will work at the defensive end as well. You guys heard me mention this during the season. I would love it, and I think it's probably the case if all three of them are back, that McCain and Grimes play some backup point guard as well. Again, keeping in mind just the size factor a little bit. I think it could work.
Daryl, even when the trio, Joel, Paul, and Tyrese did play together, the output still was not very good. Do you attribute that just to chemistry and health, or is there something more at play there in your estimation?
Well, I think mostly health for me, because again, even the games they played, at least three of them, something like that, they didn't finish the game. I know quite a few of those, it was like the first game back, which is, generally worse than as you're returning from injury. So, I'd have to go look at each game in detail, but I almost feel like they had 0 healthy games together. I think we haven't really seen what they can do. Didn't even get game 1, but we feel good. We'll be out there game 1 and showing the fans what we can do starting next season.
And on a similar note, Paul oftentimes was left taking inefficient contested jumpers this season. Do you find that that's something that you're worried about going forward in terms of his ability to create advantages, or are you more of a rule thing?
No, his fit here has always been sort of elite defense, which I do think, and Coach and I have been talking, he does deliver. And then, he's very good, when paired with players like Tyrese and Joel on offense. I do think he was asked to do a lot of things where you put really anyone in that role, and you're going to lose efficiency and things like that. He also, frankly, just looking at the data, because we're meeting with all the players over the next day or two, there was some bad. He was very low percentage on very open, like corner 3. Yeah, just stuff like that will definitely bounce back. Sometimes players go through that. I had Eric 1 year and Gordon 1 year in Houston, won the 3-point contest and then shot 31% the next year. But we all know he can shoot. We all know Paul can shoot. Of all the list of things Coach and I are worrying about, whether Tyrese can shoot or Paul can shoot or not on the list. But I do think, when we have our full complement, Paul is a very positive force on offense.
Okay, before we go to you, Zach, we're going to do Kai and then Hudrick, and then we're going to wind down. If everybody has one final one after that, I'm happy to take it. Sorry, Zach.
Yeah, Daryl, just no one obviously could predict that the season would go as it did. Hindsight's 2020, but the trade that was made with Oklahoma City years ago, just with how everything has gone, and now you're in a position you're hoping to keep your first round pick, and just in the context of the new CBA, has that affected your process of evaluating trades, specifically including first round picks and moving off of salary moving forward?
First, I feel very good about that trade because it put us in a great spot. It was before Coach was here, but it was we were the 1 seed going into the playoffs. Usually that gives you like a 40-50% chance to make the finals. So I feel good that we got good value out of that trade. Danny Green was great for us. Just a whole, Seth Curry was a trade that year too, a different trade. But anyway, so feel good about that. In terms of I think it's not just us; it's like league wide. There is sort of a shift in how firsts are sort of being held, less traded, less protected. They're only really traded in bigger trades when it's someone like a Paul George who's moving teams or something like that, or so I think that's shifting. That was one reason we made the trade of a first into 4 seconds. So because we see. We wanted the ability to upgrade the team next season by having sort of a bigger set of assets and things like that. So, if that makes sense.
Okay. Daryl, I guess Guerschon was a really big part of what you guys wanted to do this year. I guess how would you assess how he was able to produce, and is there an interest in bringing him back in the free agency this year?
Yeah, no, we love what Guerschon was able to bring. I think that was a great job by our scouting department and a great job by the coaching staff getting the most out of him. He did, just like Paul, he got pressed into maybe some roles that were a little different than he thought. We thought he was going to play more of the 4, and he's excelled there. He gave us a lot of very good minutes at the 5 as well. But in the team going forward, his mix of minutes will be, I think, a little different when we're healthy, and we really like his fit going forward. So we would like to retain him. Obviously, he's unrestricted free agent, so it's not for sure whenever that happens, but we would like to retain him.
We're going to close with Paul and then Matt.
Daryl, just your draft history kind of suggests you lean more towards best player available, higher upside. With you in being in this kind of unique position where you are a team that wants to contend, that has these high level players, how much does fit go into this? How much is it best player available? How much you were kind of balancing all of that?
Yeah, definitely best player available. It has to be that high in the draft for sure. But we see the pick as sort of a tool to upgrade the team, and obviously it'll depend. It'll matter if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or we just have the pick in the future. Could also happen. So it's just a tool to make the team better. But obviously, there's a good chance we'll take someone. In that case, it will just be the best player. I've never shied from that.
Daryl, in terms of crafting that supporting cast, there's been more than 50 different players that have been through here in the last 2 years. How do you kind of balance the opportunities to bring in new guys and change that roster with trying to cultivate some of the, Paul called it, continuity and identity, with trying to keep what is here and
Yeah.
build on that?
No, that's a good point. I think last year we had no choice but to have a lot of turnover. I think this year we're going to have a lot of continuity, so I think that will help. On the margin, all else equal, you'd rather have continuity than not. It wasn't really a choice we had. This year, really continuity with our main 3 guys is the most important thing. So that's going to have to develop during the season. Yeah. So.